This is Radio Health Journal. I'm Nancy Benson. This week, do you feel like a fraud despite your accomplishments and successes? You're not alone.
If you were raised by humans, you have statistically a much better chance of growing up to have imposter feelings.
When Radio Health Journal returns.
I'm Reed Pence, the producer and host of Radio Health Journal. If you like listening to Radio Health Journal, you'll also like our sister show, Viewpoints, which covers a wide array of topics, from education to history to the environment. Here's a preview of what they're covering this week on Viewpoints.
I'm definitely nervous about it. We all are. That's kind of what everybody's talking about these days is, gosh, can we imagine a future in which it's even hotter?
As if 2020 couldn't get any worse. Record-sweeping wildfires and extreme heat are plaguing California. Then,
the government is able to look at us with full transparency, but we can't watch them watching us.
The vast access the government has to each and every American citizen. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth this week on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
Listen to Radio Health Journal and Viewpoints on your favorite radio station, and subscribe and listen anytime on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Also, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Radio Health Journal.
We live in a world fueled by pressure to achieve success. But even if we are successful, it still may not be enough to quiet those raging doubts about ourselves. Sound familiar? About 70% of people feel like a fraud at least once in their lives. So if you're struggling with accepting your achievements, you're not alone. You may have what's called imposter syndrome, first described in the late 1970s.
Basically, it describes an experience whereby, despite evidence of one's abilities or accomplishments, degrees, good grades, status, recognition, promotions, Academy Awards, a lot of perfectly competent, capable, successful people feel like they've somehow managed to kind of slip under the radar undetected, and they're going to be found out. And they kind of shrug off their accomplishments to things like luck or timing or connections or they just like me. So external factors.
That's Dr. Valerie Young, founder of the website impostersyndrome.com and author of The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women, Why Capable People Suffer from the Imposter Syndrome and How to Thrive in Spite of It. Obviously, many people know this psychological phenomenon as a syndrome, but experts say it isn't officially a mental disorder.
I have always referred to it as the imposter phenomenon because it doesn't meet the criteria of a syndrome, which implies that it's some kind of mental disorder, which it is not. The imposter experience is something that many very accomplished people who have a lot of objective evidence of success somehow doubt that they can keep repeating that success or that somehow people are going to find out all that they don't know. And then this really can be detrimental to someone.
That's Dr. Pauline Rose Clance, professor emeritus at Georgia State University and one of the psychologists who first described the imposter phenomenon. She and Young say imposter feelings are hard to overcome, especially since the foundations of this phenomenon can develop early in life.
For one reason, if you were raised by humans, you have statistically a much better chance of growing up to have imposter feelings because you might have been the kid who came home with 4 A's and 1 B, and your family's response was, what's that B doing there? And that's the only feedback you got. So you grew up, expecting perfectionism. For kids, praise is like oxygen. Or you might have been the kid who came home with very good grades and got no response whatsoever. I mean, there's lots of different ways that even well-meaning parents might, give kids information that would cause them to grow up and have imposter feelings.
Additionally, imposter feelings can arise in environments such as school and professional settings.
Whenever you belong to a group for whom there are stereotypes about competence, that can be based on gender, race, disability, a lot of first-generation college students, first-generation white-collar professionals experience imposter feelings. Part of it could be the field you're in. People in creative fields are more susceptible. In my experience, because I speak a lot to tech companies like Apple, Facebook, IBM, Microsoft, people in tech and medicine, who are in fields where no human could ever keep up with the information that's evolving, that group is also more susceptible. So there's a lot of kind of internal and external reasons a lot of people would have these feelings.
Feeling like a fraud can even take over a person's career and sabotage their ability to succeed. But feeling incompetent isn't always permanent. Young says there are ways to stop these overwhelming thoughts and feelings.
I like to keep it super simple. What I basically have found is that people who don't feel like imposters are no more intelligent, capable, competent than the rest of us. The only difference is in that exact same situation where we might have an imposter moment, a job interview or getting up to give a presentation, they are thinking different thoughts, which is really good news because it means we just have to learn to think like non-imposters. Because, see, people who feel like imposters, when we fall short or we fail or we don't know an answer, we experience shame. And so we just really need to kind of reframe that conversation going on in our head and learn to think like a non-imposter. So when I say reframing, I mean, imagine kind of calling in the scriptwriters, calling in someone to play the part of you in that scenario. Like, how would they look at the situation differently?
Clance says professional help can make the difference in turning things around.
I think really going to a good therapist who knows about imposter feelings is the best way to handle it. And, I do think that, and I have seen people make just tremendous strides in their life in overcoming these imposter feelings.
But eliminating imposter feelings doesn't happen in the blink of an eye. Young reminds us that it takes time to start to feel differently about your success.
When I do my workshops or I give my talks, what everybody wants is to walk in the door feeling like an imposter and walk out the door not feeling like an imposter. And that's not how it works. People need to understand that feelings are the last to change. So if you want to stop feeling like an imposter, you have to stop thinking like an imposter and then keep going regardless of how you feel. In other words, don't wait to feel confident before you go out there and write your book or start your business or go after that next position up on the ladder.
Ironically, Young says to learn to accept success, we need to know that failure is a part of life. She suggests embracing failure and accepting the fact that it happens sometimes, even to you.
I've been sometimes asked, what do you recommend for kids? And my response is I would send them to failure camp right away to learn how to successfully fail. In other words, to be able to manage adversity and difficulty and realize, okay, maybe I'm not strong in math, or maybe I struggle learning a language or write or reading in school. But kind of understanding that the more I persist and get help and try, it'll come easier. And, over time, I'll get it.
You can find out more about all our guests on our website, radiohealthjournal.net. You'll find archives of our shows there, as well as on iTunes and Stitcher. Our writer-producer this week is Ariana Kraft. Studio production by Jason Dickey. I'm Nancy Benson.
Radio Health Journal returns in just a moment.
As patients throughout the country begin to return to their allergist's office, a top priority is keeping everyone safe from COVID-19. Allergists are getting in touch to let their patients know about protocols that keep people safe and socially distanced. While some visits can happen remotely with telemedicine, Dr. J. Allen Meadows, president of the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, says that's not always possible.
Controlling allergy and asthma symptoms is as important now as ever, and patients on allergy shots must come to the office. Other types of treatments that are best done in person include life-saving biologics, allergy testing, oral challenges for food allergies, and new patient visits. Most allergists have created strict procedures for in-person visits to ensure the safety of their patients.
For example, masks are mandatory and remote check-in patients can wait in their cars instead of the waiting room and may even receive some services in some practices in the parking lot. Find out more at acaai.org.
And that's Radio Health Journal for this week. Radio Health Journal is a production of MediaTrax Communications. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more. And check Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify for a library of past programs. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and information about our guests at radiohealthjournal.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Radio Health Journal.
Coming up next week on Radio Health Journal.
What the corporate expectations are for number of prescriptions dispensed, number of vaccines administered. Some pharmacies that use those metrics for bonuses or performance review.
Why your local pharmacist may fill prescriptions as fast as they can.
Then America's anger epidemic.
Anger is a normal emotion. It's part of what it means to be human, and it has great many values for us in terms of our not only our own personal well-being, but in our relationships.
All that and more on Radio Health Journal.